Everyone. Thanks for joining our webinar. The title of this webinar is Your Client Experience Center Strategy Ready for the Changing Environment? My name is Warren Greenberg. I'm the Chief Client Officer here at ATSG, and really thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us. Just some logistics before we get into this. There is a chat feature. If you do have any questions, please throw your questions into the chat, and then we'll give some time at the end of the presentation to answer any and all questions that come about throughout the deck. If you don't know who ATSG is, we are actually a managed IT and cloud solutions provider, leveraging our intelligent as-a-service platforms, focusing on digital workplace and digital infrastructure while wrapping around our managed services platform. Today, specifically, we're going to be speaking about our contact center solutions, which now is affectionately known as the Client Experience Centers. And we're going to also leverage our long-standing partnership that we have with Cisco and be able to talk about how, what we're seeing in the industry, the trends in the industry, the options between on-premise and hybrid solutions, and then how we can provide value as a combined unit between ATSG and Cisco to provide value to your organization to get the successful outcomes in which you desire. Speaking today from ATSG is our VP of Enterprise Engineering, Tony Marino, and then Zach Taylor from Cisco. And without further ado, I will pass it along to, the high-level agenda here. Again, just at a high level, we'll be talking about how you make the right choice, what the application integration and the multi-channel support, service assurance, obviously, how can you adapt to quickly changing the call volumes, whether they're going up or down, because as you know, they are fluid. Over the last 2 years, this one is relevant to everyone, supporting the remote agent workforce. How do you provide? How do you look at the trends by providing reporting and analytics? And then finally, how do you provide a positive customer experience to your clients? So again, without further ado, I'll pass it along to Tony and Zach, and enjoy the webinar.
Thank you, Warren, for that intro, and thank you, everybody, for attending today. Hope everybody is well, and I think Warren did a really good job at just highlighting and summarizing what we're going to cover today. But I really wanted to just make sure that as I go through this presentation, as we go through some of the things that you really need to consider, hopefully what you take out of this is ideas, concepts, strategies, or focus points that you and your organization should take into account as you try and change or progress along your customer experience journey. It is a journey, as many people call it, because you can't just inflect and impact change in one fell swoop. There's definitely a process and phases that go through. And I think as I start off on this slide, really what I want to make sure I bring to light for most people and most organizations is really understanding and thinking about what the future of your organization's customer experience strategy is. And when I say what is the future, it really is prudent for all of you out there if you're looking to try and innovate, change, migrate, whatever word we want to use with your customer experience and your contact center environment. You really start to consider a lot of different touch points along the way. A lot of you are faced with an organization that is mostly remote nowadays, or maybe it's a split between on-prem workers, remote workers. But the reality is that's going to be a key driver in your decision as to how you take your organization's contact center and that strategy that you're implementing is where are those agents, right? And that factor becomes important for a number of reasons, not just how do you support and how do you service those, but also the typical reasons of infrastructure and network connectivity for those users, as well as the environment that those users are operating out of. Can they still provide and perform to the levels that you need to in supporting your customers and your clients that are out there? Another key piece of the journey that sometimes gets overlooked, in the journey of the migration and the changes is compliance, right? This topic of compliance comes up because depending upon the business that you're in, the type of vertical or the industry that you're in, contact centers are becoming more and more governed by different compliance audits, policies that are out there. Primarily, security is the biggest compliance issue that sometimes gets overlooked during those initial design phases or those strategy phases that are underway, and things like PCI compliance become key, right? Do you process credit card data, or are you under the guidelines of HIPAA or other organizational type controls that need to be thought about as we implement the solutions that are out there? So some of these topics are really key to bring to the light of the initial conversations and the initial strategies that you start having those design discussions. Scalability is another key feature that most organizations think that is not important at the beginning phases of this journey, but it is. It's super important because you have to start planning for the what ifs, right? What if we are super successful as an organization and I need to grow this solution, potentially threefold, fourfold, or even fivefold? Will the solution and the design and the structures and the processes that I put in be able to support the organizational goals and that scalability? And can I do it easily, right? Not only can it support it, but can it be done easily? And then predictably is also another concern that most organizations fail to factor in those initial discussions. And then, one of the last points I'd like to bring up and make sure I bring to light and have people think about is more about, what applications are in my environment that I need to integrate with in my customer experience center. Things like CMDBs that might be in there, or ERPs that you might have, the likes of the PeopleSoft or the Microsoft tools or SAP, or maybe you're a healthcare provider and you have the likes of Epic and other integrations that are out there. The key here is the customer experience center and contact centers. I use those words interchangeably, as you'll probably hear. The key here is that it's not just about the tool and the platform and being able to route a call to a certain agent or certain user. It's more about how do I empower that user and that agent to deliver a better customer experience to my clients, customers, users, whatever the use case is for your organization. Those applications are going to be the tools that allow you to enhance that deliverable to those people. And the key here is think about that at the beginning of this journey as you go on it. What is out there in my business? What are those different business units requiring? What are the tools that they have on a daily basis that will make it easier for them to drive that customer experience forward? Things as simple as integrating so that you can get account information and screen pops within the call or information as it pops up. Those are the types of things that we need to think about as we go through this journey along the contact center and the customer experience strategy. And when we look at what's out there, Cisco definitely has a portfolio for all use cases. And I am pausing and I'm hesitating often when I have these discussions because I want customers and potential clients to think about not whether I'm deploying an on-premise or a cloud-based solution for my contact center, but really just focus on the use case and the requirements, right? That's why that first slide that I lead off with really focuses on what's the strategy, right? What are the needs of the business? And then start mapping in the solutions that are out there and start weighing those pros and cons as we go through this. And Cisco definitely has a solution that will fit every customer's requirements. And the key is to allow for the right solution to be mapped to drive the business outcome. On-premise solutions are really good at delivering typically large-scale type solutions, and there's a lot of different flavors of that are out there at the enterprise level. And the cloud solutions are also out there quickly rising in capability and scalability as well as features. There's obviously cost financial models that get taken into account as we drive through this contact center discussion and we start trying to figure out what's the right solution to meet those business outcomes. But that is not something that you should use as your driving factor when looking at your customer experience in your contact center, right? You shouldn't approach this and say, I need to go cloud, how do I do it? You should approach this as, I need to enhance the contact center experience for my users, and here's the things I want as an outcome, and then start mapping in those solutions that'll serve that purpose and deem the strategy a success. At the end of the day, you measure success by your ability to achieve those outcomes that were identified at the beginning of that process. So that's why it's so important, to work with organizations that understand that journey and understand how to identify and uncover all those requirements that you might not realize are out there. And I talked about the applications and the integrations that are out there within your environment that you really need to pay attention to and start asking the questions of your business users. Many of you are owners of the technology here on this call, and your success is going to rely on making sure you understand your business users' needs, right? Those heads within those departments that are coming to you and asking for a solution, asking for a service. And more often than not, you need to make sure that whichever solution you try and standardize on as you go down this path pays very close attention to the ability for the solutions to integrate with all the applications that are internal. Open architecture is becoming a very popular term nowadays with APIs, because you're going to make sure that there might not be that perfect widget out there that'll allow you to integrate with an application that you use as part of your normal business operations. So the tool or the product or the solution you choose needs to be able to have that API availability so that you can potentially customize and integrate easily within those applications. Plug and play connectors are definitely out there. There's a lot of integrations that Cisco tools have built right into them and make it easier for you to integrate into things like Salesforce and Microsoft Dynamics and the Zendesks of the world, and ticketing systems are key, ERPs are key. Those are decisions that you're going to want to make sure that you understand what's being used and which tools out there in the solution sets can easily activate those features. But at the end of the day, the key here is any solution that we go with, whether it's a cloud solution or an on-prem solution, is not going to fix any internal processes or business workflows that are not optimized. So if you're looking to try and innovate and bring new technology into your environment in hopes that it's going to make existing processes more efficient, that's usually a misconception, right? It's not going to make a process that's broken more efficient. That process needs to be fixed in order for the contact center and the customer experience solution to be able to thrive and be successful. So I often find in talking to customers that they all agree that there are internal processes that are broken. You can't fix those problems just by adding technology. More often than not, customers don't understand why things aren't working. You can't just add technology if you've got a staffing issue, for instance, right? If you just don't have enough agents to cover the amount of calls that are coming in, it doesn't matter how much automation you try and put in there. If the nature of your business requires that human interaction, then agents are going to be needed to service that. You don't need to change the workflow or that process behind it to optimize it. So that's really, one of the biggest issues that we find as we talk to customers and try and guide them on this journey. And one of the other topics that is key that I often find most customers overlook, forget to acknowledge, is this whole concept of service assurance, right? Most customers will approach the environment in a, hey, I've got that monitored, or yes, we've got a managed service that's providing the up, down, or the status of the solution, but they're not really looking at the service assurance aspect of it. So let me explain a little bit what I mean by service assurance. Service assurance is this concept whereby you're looking at overall solution and the delivery of that solution and all of those touch points and data points that are involved in that. So if your client experience center, your contact center has integrations with your ERPs and it has a ticketing system that's integrated with it, and you've got inbound calls, and maybe you've also got a multimodal type or a text chat or social media inputs into your client experience center. The success of that service as a whole relies on the success of all those pieces. So you really need to make sure that you have a strategy in place whereby you're monitoring and managing the operational aspect of every component, right? Not just is my contact center up and running, but is my contact center talking to those third-party integrations? Is my contact center taking calls properly? Is my contact center able to address peak bursts in calls that come in, whether it's voice calls, whether it's chat, whether it's emails? So this concept of service assurance, make sure you include that in the beginning phases of your discussions and your decisions as to what kind of a strategy you're going to use, because you cannot, at the end of this, go live with a solution and then say, oh, we forgot that we have to monitor this in order for us to be aware of issues that are going to affect the success of this service that we're providing our customers. So service assurance is really a key buzzword that's out there. And we've taken that quite seriously in our practice and the way we handle things with customers, where we've allowed and we've built some automations and some tools out there to provide a higher level of experience for customers out there. One of those tools that's out there is, there's this misnomer sometimes that an on-prem system is not easy to manage. And how am I going to provide that level of service if I can't easily manage an on-prem solution? Well, there's definitely tools out there that will help you do that. where we've looked to make those on-prem solutions more cloud-like in the management and those admin portals so that the users get the benefit of a cloud solution even though they're using on-prem. And we do that through what we call our call flow manager. There's also other tools out there that you need to take into account in part of the service assurance strategy that you're looking at, and making sure that is my system up and running the way I think it should be running or the way it was designed. A lot of customer experience centers and contact centers go through a fair amount of changes throughout the life cycle, whether it's a daily change, weekly changes, or monthly changes, because you might be changing some applications, you might be changing some call flows, or maybe there's IVR menus out there that you're changing on a regular basis to meet the changing needs of the business or the call volume that's out there. And you need tools and service assurance strategies in place to make sure that the system is still performing the way it was designed. Things like the call experience manager that we leverage for customers allows customers to do regression testing on their systems, whether it's cloud or on-prem, to make sure that it's still delivering the service the way that it was designed and the way that it was implemented. And it also ensures that things didn't break with the last set of changes that were out there. It also allows customers to potentially perform health checks. Like, how do I know that when my call center opens at 8 a.m. that the calls are flowing and being routed into the right queues? Or how do I know that my holiday greeting has been activated and playing properly, even though I put it into the schedule? Well, there's tools out there that will help identify that behavior and validate it and alert you if it's not, right? That's the key here. It's all about that service assurance. We want to make sure that the solution is performing and delivering exactly the way it was designed. And then often that comes into different improvements in the customer experience that you make by leveraging artificial intelligence, right? That's another buzzword out here that we encourage a lot of customers and clients that we talk to think about as they develop and perfect this journey or this phased approach that they're going through. And what does AI mean for you and your environment? What can you leverage to try and service the customers more intelligently with different levels of machine learning? Really is what it comes down to, is leveraging the knowledge that you have in a predictive way to provide your callers or your users or those chats with the right answer the first time that the customers are asking it, right? The idea of this bot is a great tool to try and offload work from actual physical agents, but those bots are only as good as the answers and the knowledge base articles that they've been populated with. So we encourage our customers to think about those types of things, right? What can we do to try and activate and make things a little bit easier for the environment as well as the agents? The reality is AI is geared to just trying to minimize that agent workload, right? Those agents and that person at the other end of a phone or an email or a chat are very valuable resources to your organization. And anything you can do to try and improve that experience for them as an agent ultimately can also help improve the customer experience at the end of the day. I talked a little bit about, these different models that are out there for assisting those agents. And that's something that you need to pay attention to during those design phases as well, and selecting the right solution that's going to be able to integrate with potential knowledge-based articles or Q&As that those agents need access to, or provide those automatically based upon the routing of the call and what group it came into. So all these things are out there and they're evolving every day, and those are things that need to be taken into account as we go through this. And that tends to lend itself very quickly into what we're calling workforce optimization tactics and strategies that you as an organization should think about, need to think about as you're on this journey to improving or migrating or enhancing your contact center and customer experience center. When we talk about workforce optimization strategies, it really talks about different aspects, but at the end of the day, it's how do I manage the agents that I have on my system taking these calls, right? How do I set up my staff schedules to manage the flow, the load, and the peak periods effectively? Do I have tools in place that will allow me to forecast those trends and then report on how successful we were by identifying key metrics in that management, right? The mean time to answer, average hold times, disconnect times, all those tools that are out there need to be thought about how they're going to be used in your environment when your supervisors are out there trying to manage the environment. And that lends itself quickly to the quality of the solution that you're providing, the quality of the service. Are the answers getting handled properly? Are they doing it effectively? Most people see quality management, but really what lies under that is really a lot of speech recording and speech analytics come into play here, and making sure that for training purposes, you're using the tools that are out there for quality improvement and then analyzing those statistics that are gathered, right? Whether you're analyzing the speech statistics or whether you're analyzing how efficient that agent was in using the tools on their desktop to get the answer for that caller or for that email or for that chat. And then correlating those at the end is a great strategy when you're trying to develop those NPS scores. All this falls into that workforce optimization category of the contact center environment. And those are key things that need to be, again, I keep focusing on that and I say it a lot, but these are all topics. Really what I'm trying to make sure I instill here in all of you is not to forget about these different components as you're going through this journey. It's not just about, I need a solution to call queues. There's so much to queue calls, I'm sorry. There's so much more to it to enhance that experience. And that's what we're trying to do here. And that also goes with the infrastructure management piece of this. The best solutions can fail if the underlying architecture and infrastructure isn't designed and set up and managed properly. And we at ATSG see that quite often, right? You can't deploy any kind of a solution on top of a bad foundation, right? And that foundation, when I talk about foundations, I'm talking about your network infrastructure, your carrier infrastructure, your user and desktop infrastructure. And are you managing those effectively to make sure that the application solution that you're putting on top of it can deliver according to the way it was designed? And more often than not, as I keep saying, customers forget that the key is making sure that every building block in the solution is managed properly, and we've got solutions and we help customers manage those quite effectively in an aim toward improving that service assurance. So again, wrapping back a few slides back, I talked about service assurance. Here's another component of that service assurance is making sure that you have the ability to be proactive and predictive in identifying faults and failures within your infrastructure environment that might ultimately adversely impact the service that you're delivering. That's the key here. One failure of a inbound call gateway or SIP gateway, as we call these, and sometimes in these designs, if that fails, what does that mean to my delivery of the service, right? Am I redundant? Can I make sure that I'm still delivering the service even though I've got failures in my infrastructure? And there's this concept of business impact modeling that we employ in our tools and our solutions that we present and deliver for our customers, so that from a dashboarding perspective, it's not just, is that device up or down? Can I ping it? Is it red or is it green? It's more about these 4 devices are degraded in performance. However, it's not impacting the business. Or maybe a scenario B is, yes, we are degrading business because these 5 devices have failed and need to be attended to. Or potentially even infrastructure management is, we had one failure, which is making it look like there's multiple services that are down, but the root of that cause is just this one device. Those are the types of strategies that you need to make sure that you're layering in on top of the solution from a contact center perspective. And I've mentioned a lot of different things as I go through this deck here. And I felt like sometimes these word puzzles, these word jumbles are important to throw out here, because these are the types of things that you need to think about on the journey that you're traveling. When you're looking at improving that contact center, whether you're looking to migrate to a cloud environment or whether you're looking to upgrade your existing system, all of these types of words are important, whether it's the flexibility, reliability, customization, or the integrations. Every customer's environment is different, and there's going to be different weights given to each of these different requirements based upon your business needs. The key here is, have you thought about those, right? Have you mapped the importance of all of these components and these requirements into your business, so that when you ultimately choose the solution that you're going to go with, whether it's a cloud or an on-prem solution, or maybe even a hybrid solution, you understand what you're getting for it, right? Is capacity most important to you? And is burstable capacity more important? Is that administration the most important thing in your decision-making? These are the words and these are the different topics that are very important to go through. And sometimes making that checklist, I call it, of the pros and cons and including all of these different pieces there help you identify and get to that solution faster. Because at the end of the day, we're all in a mode of transition, right? And maybe I'm an existing on-prem and I'm trying to get to the cloud. How do I get there? Can I get there? The key here is, with all the solutions that Cisco has and ATSG is able to support and design and implement, there's a solution for every customer, right? Whether you want to stay on-prem for various reasons that we've identified, or whether the on-prem is the best solution, or whether the cloud's the best solution. It's not an either or. there's also hybrid solutions that are out there in this transition. Maybe there are certain pieces of the solution that you need to keep on-prem for security reasons, but there's other pieces you want to move out to the cloud. It can be done. There are solutions for all of that. And a lot of times there's a private cloud option that customers don't think about, whereby it's the benefits of the on-prem, but it's in a cloud-like environment. And that's why we come across this transition, as we call it, whether you're on the journey where you're on-prem trying to go all the way to cloud, whether you're making a pit stop at hybrid, or whether you're going the other direction, right? There's no specific recipe for success that fits everybody, but the solutions that we have at our disposal, the solutions that you have at your disposal, will allow you to get there. Now, I've mentioned a lot, and as I wrap up here, I want to make sure that I point out the fact that a contact center is filled with all kinds of valuable data, right? The metrics that you're gathering, whether it's who's calling in, how much they called in, how often they called in, or what types of calls came in, or how fast did they get responded to, or what's the trending for peak times, and when do I have to worry about not having enough staff? Do I have compliance issues? Can I get to the problems faster? Can I predict what's going on in the environment? Or even potentially, can I understand the sentiment of different callers in real time to impact the agent's ability to deliver a better service, right? All of this is what I call this unstructured data world, where that data is all sitting in this contact center that you have and that you're running in your environment. And how do you use that better, right? That's the key here. What reports do you need to get out of the solution to help you manage the customer experience to a better and more efficient level? Can you use the data to predict? Can you use the data to improve the performance? Most organizations forget or don't realize the value of data. The world that we're in right now, I think data is key, right? We all see this with the different social media apps that are out there. It's not about the social media, it's about the data that they're collecting. It's about the journey, and it's about where people go and how they're getting there that is key to use to your benefit. So what does this mean, right? What's the future of your IT infrastructure? Look at this as it's not just the contact center, right? There's also other components, right? There's other services that you have to include in this solution to make sure that you're successful. And one of those things is the desktop side of the house. If you think about the fact that the agent, they're not just sitting there with nothing in front of them and just taking a call on a phone. They have a desktop that's sitting in front of them. And have you thought about that desktop environment? Is it set up optimally to manage and provide the agent with the most effective experience to service that customer? Have you considered the fact that you might be moving to a cloud service for your contact center, but your desktop is still considered an on-prem asset? And how are you managing that? Are you aware that there are other solutions out there that can virtualize and make the whole experience let's call it a cloud solution, right? So you can have the desktop as a service for your agents. You can have the contact center as a service. You can have the network and the infrastructure as a service, which provides you with all the flexibility that's out there. And more often than not, I keep saying this, customers don't include this in their thought process. They don't consider this one of the things to think about, but there's options out there where you can now make that contact center, that customer experience center, truly an as-a-service solution from start to finish, all the way down to the desktop, back to the infrastructure that's supporting that. And the key here is, I've said a lot of different things. I've presented you with a lot of different thoughts and ideas that are out there. But really the question becomes, what direction do you go? What should I choose? And I think the reality is, what I presented here is the fact that you don't know until you really uncover all those requirements and you start asking the questions to the business to get to that point where you've got the requirements clearly laid out. And then at the end, whether you're going to cloud or on-prem, here's some of the things that drive those solutions in that destination, right? Cloud typically affords users with better expandability, administration ease, get the hardware out of my data centers is what I hear a lot. I want to make sure that when new features are available, I can get access to those quickly, and that's what cloud offers. On the other side, when you look at customers that we see that go with on-prem, that on-prem approach is typically because customers say, I need the control. I need to be the owner of that solution, that infrastructure that's out there, so I can control my own destiny. And high availability is key for me, so I can invest and do things to make the solution more available and resilient. And really what I'll focus on here is another one on the on-prem that I find is most important to customers that go on-prem, and that has to do with data analytics and reporting and ownership of that data and what I can do with it. In the on-prem world, we find that most customers choose that path because they have some very complex reporting requirements and customized reporting requirements. And that's where they go, and they have the ability to obviously support those on-prem solutions. So hopefully I spent this first half hour giving you a real good understanding of why, what should I think about, how can we get there, and how we as an organization, ATSG and Cisco, can assist and get you there. And with that, I'm going to switch over and change it to Zach and let Zach take on his piece so that he can tell you a little bit more about Cisco and their experience.
All right. Thank you. So let me just pull up my material here. And Tony, thank you so much. Let me just, here we go. Hello, everyone. So it's going to take a moment for this to build. I'm in our new New York City office here, which is I would call it a showcase for the hybrid work environment. It's very interesting. You walk in, everything happens automatically. All your gear connects, tells you where to go. It's very interesting. And I'm going to first say, Tony, can you be my fail-safe here and say that you can see the material?
Yes, we got it.
All right, wonderful. All right, good morning. All right, well, thank you. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. It's great to be with a partner like ATSG, terrific company to work with. And I'm really honored to be part of this session today and just share with you a little bit further onto the why and what is happening in the world of contact centers. We get to talk to a lot of customers and prospects like yourselves. And I'd like to share with you and build upon the theme of, is your client experience strategy ready for the changing environment? And I'm going to take a little bit of a different path here to discuss this. And I'm going to start first off by saying, who is Grant Stewart? You might say, what does this have to do with anything? We're talking about contact centers. What does a football player have to do with anything? I will get you there, I promise. He was Mr. Irrelevant. And if you're familiar with the NFL draft, this is the last player every year taken in the NFL draft. I think it's the 259th player is considered Mr. Irrelevant. And oddly enough, he made the team. So a lot of times this is just a perfunctory pick, the cousin of the coach or something like that, but Grant made the team. And why are we talking about relevancy or irrelevancy? So I want to start by saying, what is relevancy? And it's having something that has a demonstrable matter at hand. And why I'm going to bring this up is because there is a thought that has been circulating in the world of contact centers. Is the contact center relevant anymore in the world of digital engagement and automation? And I'm going to make the case, yes. I'm going to go to the back of the book and give you the answer. And I'm going to say the answer is yes, even more so than it historically has been, even with automation. So we're going to talk about relevancy here and then what Cisco's doing to help customers like yourself build greater experiences for your customers. So look at all these forms of automation that are available now. All these forms of digital engagement. For those of us who have children, you've texted them from 10 feet away to come to dinner, you know, kids think with their thumbs, they don't like to necessarily call anyone. So there's all these other forms of digital engagement and automation are going on. Now, what was the forcing function that caused contact centers to look at automation even more so than historically? And that was, of course, the pandemic, right? So what occurred is that all of a sudden, March 2019 through March 2020, contact centers got 3 times the traffic they normally would have because the brick and mortar portions of many organizations closed, especially in the world of retail. And all of a sudden you had 3 times the offered load coming into the contact center and you cannot hire anybody. What do? You lean heavily into automation and self-service. And people were doing this anyway historically. That's what contact centers are. They're a blend of automation and live assist. But the automation became even the bigger focal point. So what happened was all the investment that was going to occur in automation 3, 4, 5 years out was pushed forward into 1 or 2 years, and it continues on. Now, with that being said, does that mean that once we're done with automation, self-service, digital channel engagement, does that make the voice contact center, the classic contact center, as we all knew, right? Average handle time, average speed of answer, screen pop, CTI, all that. Does that make it any less relevant? And the answer is no, it makes it even more relevant. We're going to talk about why that is the case. So the point is, what is this why? Why is the contact center, the live assist, even more important than ever? And the way I'm going to build this case for you is I'm going to show you a picture. And what you see on the left is, by the way, this is a purposely busy slide. On the left, you see all the digital channels of engagement that occur out there. SMS, voice, email, all the ones that we had on the last slide. On the right, we see all the business systems that are associated with the way you do business. You might be in healthcare, retail, and these are the classic business systems, the CRM system, the back-end system. The reason why someone contacts you is because there's a piece of information that resides in the business system that they cannot find on their own or requires resolution. And if you draw a line from every channel of engagement that's potential these days to every business system, you get a purposely busy and a mesh that's hard potentially to manage. So what you see here are 4 characteristics that arise when this occurs. Number 1, you see complex integration as a potential problem. You see challenged customer experience. You see fragmented customer journeys. You see no single point of orchestration. These are potential problems, but we have solved for. And finally, you see an arrow pointing to what is really the key point of this part of the discussion. The contact center now is an exception center. What did contact centers do for 1,000 years? They did one thing 1,000,000 times, over and over, repetition, robotic service, scripting, etc. All those can and should be automated. What's left over coming into the contact center are your corner cases and your outliers that cannot be automated. And with that, they become exceptions. And exceptions are critical because they represent what potentially is a lost customer or a lost relationship. So therefore, the contact center becomes not the first point of entry, it becomes potentially the last point before departure. And so the live assist portion of your contact centers are now a pressure point in customer relationships. So what you see here are these exceptions are the new pressure point. Your contact center should be handling exceptions. If it is handling run rate, repetitive interactions, you should be doing deep inspection to make sure these can be automated because people love automation and they love the ability to help themselves. So take a very strong look at the work that your contact center agents are doing. Inspect on a weekly basis. Are we getting a common question? Are we getting a common interaction? All of this can and potentially should be moved to automation and should be connected to potential new forms of digital engagement, all the messaging channels out there. What's left over though, those few things that are left over or those decreasing number of things that are left over are critical, even more so important than ever because they represent what could be your attrition in your business, the shrinkage in your business, etc. So let's take a look at a case study. Who's the case study? Oftentimes we cite a customer. I'm going to cite myself. All right, let's start. On May 3rd, 2022, I got a letter from a financial service provider indicating that their current service with me that I had with them, even though the instrument had not matured, was going to be, I guess, diminished or released from their custodial nature of what they did for me, and they were going to turn it over to a third party. And they were no longer, quote, in this business. And I didn't want to have another relationship with another firm. I didn't want another Quicken download that I had to set up. I wanted simplicity, and I was searching for that. So I began the process of trying to maneuver this whole idea of getting my financial instrument set up in a manner with another firm that was requisite with how I wanted to do business, and it was an existing relationship. So what did this all begin with? It began with a process of automation. It began with a email. It began with a form that was filled out, and the promise that this would take under 10 days to accomplish from the old firm to the new firm. Well, let me give you 3 numbers that were associated with this. This took, if you go to the far right, it took 58 days to get this right. It took 11 secure messages between these 2 firms, 4 secure faxes. I don't even want to show you all the paperwork necessary to do something that arguably should have been extraordinarily simple between these 2 firms. It was almost like it was purposeful on their part to make this hard. And the question is, you want to see the proof? Here's the digital messages I had between the old firm and the new firm, and it had to do with an IRA product. May 4th, I started, should have taken 10 days. It was not completed till July 7th, May, June, July. 58 days to do something that should have required 10. So the question becomes, who resolved this? What process resolved that with me? It was a human in a call center, actually a very helpful human. And as Elon Musk said, when the Model 3 factory was having trouble getting started and all the workers came in and he slept on the floor and they began to build cars manually, humans are underrated. So in this situation, a human interjected and solved my problem in this exception environment. And it took them 21 minutes. Now, by the way, did the AHT of the contact center go up that day? Absolutely it did. Did someone miss their efficiency metrics? Possibly. Did they retain a customer? Absolutely. This is the misleading nature of efficiency metrics in contact centers. These go all the way back to the Hawthorne works at Bell Labs, and they cause companies oftentimes to do the wrong thing right. This individual did the right thing right and saw me through. And all the automation, all the secure faxes, all the digital messaging did not accomplish this. Not only did the former company lose a customer, the arriving customer company was in danger of losing a customer, and it took a human to fix it. So the question becomes, all right, so what now what? Well, let me assure you that we take these experiences here at Cisco and we think about them when we build our products. So what is our vision? Our vision is to help companies like yourselves build intelligent and proactive, hyper-personalized connections with no compromises to scale and uptime in what you're doing, and to provide the perfect balance between automation and live assist so that you can automate what you should and provide the exception services to what you must, so you can lower the cost of serving your customers while improving service. Historically, in the world of contact center, if you lowered the cost of delivery, you would also lowered the service associated with it. What is our classic example of this? The IVR, the thing that people love to hate, right? 1-800-GET-HUMAN. If you've known that website, everybody tries to avoid self-service. It's classic self-service. So our vision is to help you do this in a more proactive, preemptive way and provide this automation on the front end that provides contextual live assist for those exceptions that should be handled by humans. So what is this? What happens when this occurs? These are kind of the attributes of what we want to help our clients deliver to their customers. Number one, far more proactivity, allowing consumers to connect their way. There are a number of messaging channels that are very popular these days, including WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, Apple Business Chat. Most people want to engage with their businesses that support them as easily as they message a friend. However, and this is the key point, between those first two steps and the third, fourth, and fifth is the corridor of I would call it risk. Because if you come out of automation and you want to get to live assist, you should be able to provide context and a friction-free movement between automation and humans. Otherwise, you're going to hit the 5 deadly sins of customer experience. Who are you? Why are you here? What were you doing? What's your relationship to us? Oh, and I'm not the right person that you should be dealing with. Though that is a recipe for a lost customer or attrition. So we're focusing on smooth contextual handoff when necessary between digital engagement and live assist that focuses on minimal weight and repetition. Empower the agent with context so they don't ask that question, who are you and why are you here? Contact centers historically have been like inviting your best friend over for dinner. And when they get to your house, you open the door and they say, you say, who are you and why are you here? And your friend says, I'm your friend. We've had dinner every Friday night for the last 16 years. Contact centers historically have asked people to re-authenticate, repeat, re-engage, and then solve the problem with extended personnel. What does this mean? This means that no longer the contact center agent should be on an island. That's why the combination of contact center software and unified communication software is very prevalent these days, working hand in hand, because that contact center agent literally needs to pivot, swivel chair, and look for people in the business, not visually, but physically, literally, to help them potentially solve these outlier issues, these exceptions that are not easily handled potentially by an individual. And by the way, when I had that person who helped me in that 21-minute corridor that saved their business with me, they actually had to call in another individual to help collaborate on the problem that I had, and it solved the problem. So that's the experiences that are reimagined. So let's basically focus on one end of it. My colleague here did a great job talking about the various options of cloud capabilities that are out there, including traditional, including hybrid, and then of course the public cloud or contact center as a service solution. I'm going to focus on one solution we have, which is WebEx Contact Center. This is our public cloud contact center as a service, built homegrown by Cisco, microservices, buzzword compliant, everything that you would want in a public cloud contact center. And the attributes of it that help meet these challenges that you have are 5. We're going to talk about something very quickly: Journey Data Service, orchestrated low-code workflow, doing this across all channels, augmenting the agent with intelligence, and doing this on top of Cisco infrastructure with APIs. So let's briefly spend a moment on these 5 characteristics. Number 1, we're about to come forth with a solution called Journey Data Service. This is a listening technology that's cloud-based that can allow you to acquire information from where the client is touching your various touch points, whether they're physical or virtual, to gather and build a real-time profile that allows you to do something different with that engagement that you normally would have done otherwise. And Journey Data Service is a hyperscale kind of solution that acquires information in the moment and allows you to understand better what your client is doing just around the corner from being generally available. The second is an orchestrated journey. And what you see here is what's called a low-code flow builder. This is the characteristic of responding quickly to situations in your enterprise that you would historically might have gone and had to have had a SI or heavy lifting integration required. And that's all been subjugated into what are called low-code flow builders that build pre-integrations to various business systems on the back end and allow you to drag and drop these to create responses to friction in your environment. And this is ostensibly a part and parcel piece of WebEx Contact Center, is a low-code orchestration engine that does this across all channels. It's not just voice, right? So all the channels of interaction that you would want to think about delivering to not only your current, but potentially your future customers would be able to be orchestrated in this manner. Do this by augmenting it with virtual intelligence and AI. AI is not the answer, and what's the question, as it has been for a couple of years. AI should augment humans when necessary and potentially replace them if possible. But as we all know, that road to AI replacing humans is a long one. So most of the work you will experience, or how you experience AI these days, you wouldn't even know it's participating in the interaction. It's doing something in the background. But there are times where we will know that AI is helping the contact center agent. And primarily what's happening, and most innovations in contact center focus on efficiency first and effectiveness second, because the cost of running a contact center is largely tied up in humans, and that's where the cost structure is augmenting humans and populating the desktop potentially in advance of the customer's questions by listening and their intent detection, and delivering answers to the desktop, potentially to the agent, so that they can quickly and more easily support the interaction. And finally, WebEx Contact Center is a Cisco delivered solution on top of our, with a ton of APIs, with the Cisco security and scale you've come to expect from us, from a company that has a full stack of these capabilities. So that is in market for the last several years. Lots of customers, lots of agents, lots of adoption of this solution, solving the problem of automation when necessary and humans when possible. How does this look? And this is the final picture I'm going to show you. I want you to leave a visual here. People learn in 2 ways. They hear and they see. This is the seeing part of the presentation. I want you to remember the connected journey. And there's 3 steps to it that perhaps you can take back as you think about looking into your own environment. Automation, connection, and engagement. Automation on the front end, you should be deeply inspecting where automation has potential to lower costs in your business when done properly. Connecting with context, not having the do-over, the re-authentication, the re-explanation, utilizing information from automation to live assist to provide a friction-free engagement for those few but critical engagements that require human assistance that come off automation. And then finally, engaging the full power of your business, not only your contact center agent, but your entire value chain to serve customers. This is particularly important potentially in retail services and financial services. Automation, connection, and engagement. So, summary, again, just quickly here. Your contact center is more important than ever. It is not less important than ever. There is there are customers over the years or CX evangelists who have said things like, we're going to automate the contact center out of existence. People are focusing on automation when appropriate and live assist as necessary to focus on those real critical engagements. These exceptions will define and they will be the needle movers of your customer experience. Automation will not necessarily do that. It's the outliers which will define the highs and lows in your CX, your Net Promoter Score, your customer effort score, your CSAT. We have new solutions that we're partnering with ATSG to drive these new forms of automation while providing excellent human engagement. And yes, expect less, slightly less voice calls into your contact center, but far more important ones if you follow a strategy of automation with human engagement that many customers are going after today. And with that, I'd like to turn it back to our colleagues for any questions, and thank you for allowing me to share a few things that we're learning as we meet with many clients like yourself and what we've learned along the way. So thanks.
Stacy, the question slide is not popping up on my side, but I think that's the next part of our agenda.
Yes, so if anybody has any questions at all, they can enter them into the Q&A section, and then I'll just read them out to the presenters. I don't have any here currently. Let's just give it one more second. And then people are using chat as well. All right, I don't think we have any questions, so I think we can move on to the raffle.
Oh,
Sorry, we do have one question. We do have one. I'm not seeing it. Do you?
I do see that one. I'll take that one. That's Jason asking about the call flow manager and the call experience manager proprietary tools. So these are tools that we here at ATSG have developed over time using all of our experience, obviously, and what we've seen in different customer environments and the gaps that were out there. So we developed these tools to be deployed for our customers, whether it's on-prem or as a service. So we can definitely have a discussion and talk more in detail about those tools. And then I do see another question from Jason out there. I don't know if there's any other one, Stacy, but I see that one popping up, right? On-prem versus WebEx Contact Center. Are the economies of scale similar to Office 365? Generally speaking, what's the breaking point on user count for on-prem versus cloud? Tough question to answer. I don't want to say it depends, right? That's always the default answer. But the economics are such that you have to take into account how long of a lifespan you're looking to get the solution for. And then what other integrations there are. The reason why I say that is because integrations are always the wild card in these designs. Typically, total cost of ownership for cloud over time might be a little bit higher than on-prem, but the cloud gives you access to more features faster than the on-prem might, whereas on-prem you'd have to go through upgrade cycles that might incur more charges. So those discussions are more about the full solution as to what's employed and deployed for you to depend what the economics would look like. And then just Jason, just to wrap back around your question about the call flow manager and those call experience managers, I think it is important we have a breakout or follow-up with you that we do demos of all those tools as well, so you can see the value and the benefit that those tools might provide you.
Mm-hmm. Tony, I'll add just an item too on user count. Just on pure mathematics, WebEx Contact Center is built on an architecture that's called horizontally scalable, which means in theory it can get as large as we want to deliver. We have very large WebEx Contact Centers deployed now. Right now we are in market with a 3,000 agent maximum of the solution, and that's just to make sure we can deliver at scale and with the kind of quality and reliability we want. Anticipate you will see increasing scale counts to that. So the break even really is not necessarily a mathematical thing between cloud and prem. It's more how do you want to run your business, and what are the outcomes you're trying to deliver, and what's your starting point, by the way. If you're starting from a antiquated contact center that's 10, 15 years old, going directly to the cloud may be the way to do it. If you have something more modern, there's hybrid cloud models that allow you to